Hello, I'm Jim McCann with Shopsmith. I'm here today to show you how to upgrade this old beauty with the new PowerPro technology. It's a fairly involved process that'll take some time. We'll be doing some metal drilling. We'll completely disassemble this headstock and put these components in it. You've all got the pieces and parts in front of you. Owner's manual will follow step by step. First thing I want to do is talk a little bit about safety. I want to remove all the jewelry. Don't want to get caught in the machine. I want to wear safety glasses. Don't want anything flying in your eye. So with that said, and one more reminder, unplug your Mark V when we tell you to. We'll get going. I'll go put this down and be right back. First thing to do is select the tools. There's a list in the manual. All the tools are needed. Now, I've pre-selected these. If you haven't done so already, go get them. I'll wait. Okay, got them? Okay. Remember, safety first. We're going to start with tearing apart the headstock. To do that, have to prep it a little bit, have to turn it on, change the speed, go on through this. So what I'm going to do is turn the speed up to fast. That will loosen the drive belt, get it near the top of the pulley on the motor, and allow us to take it all apart. So now unplug it. This will probably be the last time you'll plug it in until we're done machining. Now the instructions tell you to prepare several pieces of wood. One's just a 1x12 or 1x4 that we'll use for a jack. This makes handy lifting of the table. Make sure that's locked down. This is locked down. What this does, it allows you to pick up the table, pick up the headstock with the table, lock it down, and then that's suspended like that so you can work on it. What we're going to do, start by removing the motor. Now the easiest way to do that is this position. We'll put a board under here, lower the headstock onto the board, watching that we don't crush the wire. Now let's lock that back in place. The motor pin then can be taken off as soon as we get the screws loose on the belt cover. And the motor pin. Now, remember, if you've got hubs here on the idler shaft or the upper drive, those have to come off first. Now there's one screw right here in the middle that everybody forgets about. That comes off. These four remaining screws around the outside come off. The motor pin is loose, but the belt is still attached to the motor at this point. In your manual, see a nice close-up shot of coming in here, looping the belt around the sheaves after you open them up. There, the belt's disconnected. Now, this is one of the reasons you got to make sure the plug wire is unplugged. We're going to go inside and disconnect the switch. Now if you've got a real early A headstock, these wires are not pushed on the switch, but they're held on with screws. And those, you'll have to take this nut off of the switch. You'll use 9/16 deep well socket to do that. Then the switch will drop out with the motor. You also, on the old A headstocks, will not be able to remove this logo plate on the back side. That's one of the improvements they made very early on. Now, the screws are out, the belt is off. Now we can lift the headstock up a little bit more. You can see the motor come free. There's the wires, and there's the motor. Of course, power cord wants to lift it. But that's done. Now the next step is to get rid of the belt cover. And to do that, we have to remove the weight tube tie bar. 5/32 Allen wrench will do the trick here. Now, some of you have never removed this before, and it's on there pretty tight. You might need to get a rubber mallet and tap right here in the middle. Knock that loose. Then that pulls straight off. Nice and easy. Your belt cover comes off. This is going to be a holding fixture for you later on when we machine the headstock. And we'll put a towel in it to protect the headstock. Just like that. Now, the remaining headstock will come off. At this point it's rather light because most of the weight's the motor. Now if you turn the headstock upside down, you can rest the depth stop and the quill lock right here on the belt cover, and everything is held pretty stable. It's a good working surface. Okay? We'll just leave the Mark 5 just like that. Is pull the motor out of the motor can. To do that, have to disconnect this ground screw. Different motors have ground screw in different places, so be aware of that. Look for the green wire. That'll be your clue. Now, this has been upgraded, and that brings me to a good point. You fellows out there that have, and gals too, that have upgraded your machine recently, you notice you've got some extra parts. You've got a new quill, upper drive and ring assembly. Those all need to go in with the new PowerPro technology. You can save your newly upgraded parts, the quill and the upper drive sleeve, if you've done that, and use them for spares later on. Now, to get the motor out of the motor pan, you need number 3 screwdriver. These are sometimes very, very tight. All you have to do to loosen them when they're really tight, give them a tap, and they'll break free. Now, the other thing you have to do, you won't be using those screws again. The other thing is to remove the the strain relief. That's this black plastic part right here. You can use the channel locks or these slip jaw pliers. These work pretty well. And just grab it across the long dimension. That will release it in that hole, and your wire will be loose. You'll be able to remove your motor pin from your motor and remove your cord. You've got a new cord. You can set this one aside. You can make a short extension cord out of it if need be. But the motor and the cord are no longer part of the picture. Now, that's the empty motor pan. Now for the headstock, first thing we're going to do is remove the speed control mechanism in here. To do that, turn it right side up, and you'll need a little flashlight to look down in the hole here. What you'll see is a little tiny set screw. That set screw takes this 3/32 Allen wrench. It's got to be a long one like this, or it'll never reach down in there all the way. Now, sometimes this is really tight. You have to put a pair of pliers on it to break it loose. This one's been upgraded recently. Whoever did it seemed to do a pretty good job at it. There. Now, once again, more parts you won't be using. All this gets replaced. Now the next step is take out these 3 screws that hold the speed control. These have got Phillips screws in them because of the upgrade that was done. Earlier machines had slotted screws here. Now, this will come out. As soon as you release there's a little wire clip right down here. Release that, and the speed control comes out. Now, your control sheave will fall off. Your belt will fall off. We'll take the idler shaft out next. Now, in order to do that, this bolt has to be loosened. Sometimes we need a 1/4-inch wrench. Sometimes we need the 5/32 Allen wrench. The older machines, like this one, had 5/32 on it. So we'll loosen that. We'll loosen and remove this screw right here. Washer under the screw to hold the eccentric and idler shaft in position. Now, it's still tight and it won't move. The reason for that is this eccentric is tensioning the drive belt right here. Now, it could be a poly V-belt, could be a Gilmer belt. Now, on the Gilmer drives, you have to remove this bolt all the way. And there's a little metal clip that goes across here. That metal clip is what holds the idler shaft in place rather than the screw that I just took out. So we kind of push out the this is okay. This is the old style. The eccentric is held on to the bearing with a set screw right here. Can you see that? I hope so. This set screw's got a little point on it that goes into the groove. That groove is in the bearing and locks the idler shaft and the eccentric bushing together. Now, on the very new ones, they just clamp together because the eccentric bushing is split in the middle. Now this is out, right here's that set screw. You can see how that works. Okay, now, next thing is to get out this drive sleeve assembly. Your belt is loose. Easiest way to get to this is a little hook end on this snap ring. Can you see it there under my finger? Just get your screwdriver under that and just pry it up, take it out of the slot, and then that ring will come out all in one piece. Save that. You'll need it when you put things back together again. Now, this drive sleeve assembly looks like this one's going to come out pretty easily. If it doesn't, what you need to do is loosen this set screw right here. This rides in the groove you've all seen in the top of the quill. That keeps that from the quill housing from rotating. Loosen this. You'll need a little block of wood, just a scrap piece. It goes in between the drive sleeve assembly down here and the end of the quill. You get there by extending the quill until it almost disengages. Set the depth stop at 4 1/4. Lock it securely. Get my belt out of the way. Now the block of wood goes right in there in between the two parts. And when you release the lock, watch that, it just pushes it straight out. Just like magic. See how that's coming right out? And you get that to that point and it'll pull right out. Your belt comes out, your quill retracts, and you can extend the quill rest all the way out, disengage it. Now once again, set your depth stop at 4 1/4, lock it down securely. Won't need the quill feed handle until later. Now, next thing to do, we have to remove the wedge locks. You'll notice here on the wedge lock handle, it says headstock lock. There's a roll pin, almost flush with one side, recessed in the other. Some very early models, this pin didn't go all the way through. So the only way to get the wedge lock out is to cut them. Cut them with a hacksaw, hold it with the locking pliers, and you can saw right through this rod. So, sorry for the inconvenience on that. It's just the way they made them. in the early 50s. But today we'll be able to knock this out with a 1/8 inch pin punch and a hammer. Put the punch in the recessed side here and give it a good smack. You see it starts to come out and it'll get loose. Now tap gently. You don't want to get the punch stuck. Now that's out far enough. Put the locking pliers on the rod. Now this is a left-hand thread, so you unscrew it backwards, so to speak. Then you can release the locking pliers and start turning the rod so that the wedge locks come into the center of the headstock here. As you do that, you'll get more and more room to slide the rod first left and then right until it disengages. There it goes. Now, save that. You're going to need it. We'll put it back in after we get everything done. I like to put all that back together again just to hold it. Now it's time to clean it. This one's pretty well cleaned up because it's been upgraded. New parts have been put in it. But if yours isn't clean like this, clean it out. Some compressed air, the rag. Take care of the inside of the headstock. Also, now's the time to paint the outside if you're going to do it. That way you can get rid of some of the scratches and make it look as good as it can be. On these old gold headstocks and the even older green ones, I'm sorry, but there's no paint available for those. The gray headstocks, we've got paint. So if you need to order paint, if you need to order wedge lock, call customer service. They'll take care of you. If you're in the middle of this, let them know that. They'll expedite the order. Okay, now, next thing is machining, and I'll trade these assembly tools in for machining tools. So we're going to work with a couple of templates here. Now, they need to be cut out carefully on the lines. This little template here for the new hole on your motor pan is one, and then we've got these larger templates used for the mounting holes for your control power supply. Sorry. Now, to save a little bit of time and effort and magic of video, I've cut these out ahead of time. The first one are these small ones. Now they're going to go on the side right here and line up with this existing hole. Now this one says rear template. This is the back of the machine or the rear of the machine, and we'll tape it in place, a little masking tape. Now, I like to use the center punch to help me guide the template onto the hole. This hole with the screw in it is the existing hole, And the center punch will go right in the center of that hole. And line this template up. And a little piece of tape to hold it in place. Center punch the new hole. Okay, you can see that well. A little grease pencil to help make it a little more obvious. The other side is exactly the same. Take the 10-ring clip off. This is the front where the speed dial goes. Front template, it says top. That's to the top of the headstock. Front template. Line up the existing hole. Start it with the center punch. A little piece of masking tape. And then right at the crosshairs. Okay. First two holes. Now, the next two holes are on the front of the headstock here. Use this larger template. The semicircular cutout goes under the quill. The rib of the casting goes under these two lines, and then it mounts onto the casting this way. Drop my center punch. Now, you see it says on here, place tape here first on the right side after you get everything lined up. Taping it down in this order helps with laying it flat. See, it just folds right over those ribs, and then third and fourth on the bottom lets you push that paper right down into the corner of the headstock. There. Now that template is right up here under the quill. The two holes you're going to center punch are here. They're flat against the headstock casting. The tape's holding everything down. There. There's the two holes. One right there, one right there. Now, you'll also notice two drill bits and a drill guide in your kit. We're going to use the smallest drill bit first and save the larger one for later. Put the small bit in first. Short little bits, but they only have to go through a little bit of material, so that's all we need. Tighten it down good. Some people like to put a drop of oil either on the drill bit or right there where we're drilling. Other people like to drill aluminum dry. You know you're using the right speed and right feed when you get little curly cues coming out of the drill bit. If you get dust or powder, you're going too fast. Don't need a whole lot of speed. Now those are the first two holes for the control panel. I'm sorry, those are for the power supply. Put a drop here. Another advantage of going slow is you can feel as it starts to cut through and doesn't grab and snag and make a mess of things. A little bit of finesse. You can feel the tip in the little mark the center punch made. Quite slow. Drill through. There. That's the easy part. Well, it's all easy. Clean off some of the metal shavings. This is a good reason for wearing safety glasses. Now, next part is using a drill guide and a larger drill bit through these three holes. This drill guide will only fit one way onto the machine. These pins either go into holes or above the casting to miss the casting. Yeah, that's how it goes into the holes. And you can see this pin and this pin are missing the casting. But if you turn it backwards, then either this pin hits the casting, won't allow it to go in the fixture, or even if you've got that pin right and you get this one in the hole, these two won't go in the hole. So we tried to make this drill guide as easy to use as possible. With this, you need two C-clamps, these C-clamps hold the fixture in place, and we're going to drill right through the side right here. Now, to give myself a little more room, I'm going to put C-clamps on the other way. You can see how that's important. Now I can get the drill in here without interfering with the end of the C-clamp. Change drill bits. Put a little oil on the drill bit. I don't want to use too much. And I just hold it straight in line with the guide. There's the first hole. Second hole is just that easy. See how that wants to run in on you a little bit? By running it nice and slow, you can control that. Now this third hole right here in the middle. Okay. Now, we want to do the same thing on the opposite side, the same pattern. Now, if you have a headstock, the old green sandcast model, this pin is going to be in your way because this corner, right here, this corner is solid. So you're going to have to knock that out. Here, I'll show you that. Here we have an old A headstock, and you can see these two corners are a little bit different. This corner lets you get the pin in it. This corner here is solid and doesn't allow you to put the pin in. So knock that second pin out there, the one closest to the end. You have to double make sure that that pin, the end with two pins, or now a pin and a hole, goes towards the quill. That's the only way it'll work. If you turn it around the wrong direction, the holes will be off and you won't be able to mount your motor. I hope that is clear. Okay, we've drilled these 3 holes. Turn it around and drill the next 3 holes. Now I have to turn my jig around. I turned the drill guide around. Now here we're running into a little bit of a problem. These holes don't line up quite with the pins. And what I'm going to do is drill them out slightly. So right now they're just clearance holes for the tournament clip screws. The exact location does have to line up with the belt cover, motor pan. But they can be a little oversized and not hurt anything. Check that this fits. Just need a little bit more. Now, I'm elongating the holes front to back, not up and down. Just pushing sideways on the drill bit. Another good reason for the short drill bit. Almost there. Okay, now that fits just fine. Put on the 2 C-clamps. Seems like I've only had this problem on really early headstocks. The ones from the early 70s on have not had this problem. So I'll change back to the larger drill bit and put a little oil on it. I drip on my rig, right? Good planer. We'll drill these 3 holes. That was interesting. There it goes. Didn't use my oil and paid for it, didn't I? Right as it breaks through, it wants to catch. Right now my bit's spinning in the chuck. There we go. Alright, that's the drilling. Just have to countersink some holes now. Need to allow for screw heads. The countersink looks like this. It's got a guide pin on the end of it and then teeth that cut the countersink. You want to go just deep enough to the edge of the bevel but not past it. We'll use a screw that'll take out a motor as a gauge on how deep to drill the countersink. Now, here's the screw out of the motor, and there's the countersink. Okay. The guide pin on the countersink keeps the countersink centered in the hole on the caster. Just that simple. This likes to run dry, no oil, and also at a very slow speed. Getting a little chatter there, that's alright. Now that's just a little crowd. I want to go flush, but not below it. Okay, that's perfect. See how that works? Just perfectly flush. Now we'll do that 5 more times. Now if the head sticks out a tiny little bit, that's better than going too deep. But if it sticks out too far, then you'll have trouble with the motor pan. Okay, we're halfway home. After you get the first couple done, you'll get pretty good at it. Only have to take a little bit off. It's better to be safe than sorry and go at it. You don't want to go too fast, too far. You can always take more away, but you can't ever put it back. So be cautious about it. Take your time. Get it right. One more little shot. There, that's good. Okay, the machining is done. We've got motor mounting holes on both sides, and the power supply mounts on these 2 holes, this hole, and this hole. Okay, now it's time to put it all together. Now there's one little task that's left that's kind of a transition between assembly and machining. This hole for the strain relief has to be moved to right here. And that's quite a little job. Takes some filing. That's what this template is for. We line it up, center the template on the hole, use your grease pencil, and draw a line. I chose red grease pencil. It shows up real nice on gray. The black grease pencil might be a little bit better on this gold, but I can see it. Now, this is where a little elbow grease comes in, especially getting it started. We'll file this open. Now, you want to use the corner that's directly in line with the old hole and on the closed side of the motor pan. So that way it puts the cord in the right spot for the motor and also makes it up front and convenient when you need to go grab the power cord, move it around. As we get a little working room here, it'll start to be able to file it away. You see, I'm pushing with my thumb to give it some side force, and then pushing down on the handle of the file to drive it into the metal. When the hole gets big enough for the file, be able to do the in and out motion that makes it cut easily. I've tried to find a decent way of doing this with a hand drill, and I just don't know of any. I've tried the step drills and large drill bits, and starting with smaller drill bits and working up to larger and larger, and this motor pan catches most of them and spins it around. Even when you're standing on it, it can be hazardous because it'll spin out from under your feet, so your one foot is holding it and bust you in the ankle. So this is a lot of work, but it's really the most effective way of getting the job done. Wear out your filing arm too. Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera and continue to file, turn it back on in a little bit when I get closer to done. Now, if you've got one of these big old hand screw clamps, you can hold the motor pan in place. It'll help you out a bit. There, you can see I'm not fighting it at all. Now you have to be careful you don't distort the motor pan. You want to clamp it on the radius edge here, and then by tightening this, bring the front jaw down to avoid coming down and clamping into it with the tip of the jaw into here and distorting the pan. I bet you all love that noise. I'm going to turn it off for a minute. Okay, I'm getting to the point where I'm up next to the line. trying to keep the hole as round as possible. Now I can use the strain relief. Remember the template said it's supposed to be 3/4 of an inch in diameter. I can use the strain relief as kind of a guide to see if it goes in initially, and not yet. Because I used this fat wax grease pencil, the line is thick and we have to remove all of the line to get to 3/4 inch. So I'll continue filing and be back in a moment. Now I'm getting really close. Want to keep it round. Here's the template. That looks real close. Now there are going to be some little burrs there that'll be sharp. Now I'd say I need a little more filing to do. Just a little more. Now I'll continue to file and you won't have to listen to me. I'll be right back. As you're filing, look for little flat spots. Get rid of them. Nice circle. Use your template as a guide. Looking better and better all the time. And the final proof is the strain relief goes in. Now you'll notice there's some little ridge around the strain relief. That's what catches the metal. And we've included a new one in there to make sure that it works well. But you can use either the new one or the old one to test with. So that's how it should go in. Now when the cord is inside of here and everything is pressed together, this will want to expand and it'll catch on these inside edges. A little bit of burr around there isn't going to hurt anything. Just watch you don't cut your fingers. Okay? Now we'll start putting components in the headstock. First thing we need to do is the motor cord, power cord into the motor pan. You've got 3 wires here, a black, a white, and a green with yellow stripes. They have to go through the hole. Now, feed the wire all the way through so that the plug is up against the hole. That will give you plenty of wire to play with during the rest of the assembly process. I need to set that back there. Now while we're thinking about it, this green wire needs to be folded back. And there's a wire tie here. You've gotten several of them in your kit. Just tie that back, ½ inch from the end or so. Pull it real nice and tight, and then cut the wire tie off. That wire, that green ground wire, will go to your motor. These 2 black and white wires go to your switch. Just like we took it apart from the bottom to the top, we're going to build it up backwards of that, just opposite of that. We're going to build it from the top to the bottom. Because there's most room in here right now, I'm going to connect the wires to the switch. Now, looking at the side this way, I'm going to put the white on the right and the black on the left. Now we'll hook the motor up the exact same way. Just put the wire in that little notch right there. That'll be out of your way. Now, let's put the drive sleeve and the quill in. The quill was the last thing to come out, so it's going to be the first thing to go in. Now, if you've had problems with the quill feed and it's not retracting real well, let's set the quill spring rate properly here. Release the depth stop lock and release the tension. Be careful not to let go of this handle. It'll come back and smack your knuckles, make you cry. Now, it takes 4 revolutions to tension the spring. 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's 3 revolutions. I stand corrected. 3 revolutions to tighten the quill spring. Now that gives you enough return spring to bring the quill back into the headstock. Okay, first thing you do is slide the quill into the headstock. You're going to feel that first engage the first tooth of the rack, and you'll take it right back inside. Again, be careful not to release that or it's going to come back and smack you in the hand. You wish you had knuckle guards on. Now, this set screw goes into the top of the quill. We want to be careful that it goes in this groove and doesn't damage it. So what I do is give it a little wiggle, make sure it's in there, and tighten it, then loosen it just 1/8 of a turn. It should slide back freely. If it doesn't, just another 1/8 of a turn, and check that. That looks good. Now, the drive and ring assembly, drive sleeve assembly, and your poly V-belt are next. Now let's extend this quill so that we can get the belt in. Hold it by hand. The belt doesn't care which way it goes. Now, these splines here have to engage the splines on the quill. They're going to be a little tight. So you're going to wiggle it around and there it goes. The advantage of doing it this way is that quill guides this drive sleeve assembly through the casting, and you should not have any problems just pushing it in. Do not pound on that thing. Don't hit it with a hammer. Even a rubber mallet smacking on the end here will damage the bearings. You should be able to slide it in. If it's so dirty that you can't slide it in, then take some Scotch-Brite and clean that out. Maybe even some paste wax to smooth it up. Make sure there are no burrs. It should slide in just like that. That's not a press fit. It's only a slip fit. It's very close. Now, remember I said to save this ring, you're going to need it to put it together. Here we go. Now this is a spiral snap ring. This one end has to get in that groove, and then you'll work the rest of the ring around. I've seen people out on the line do this dozens of times and they make it look too easy. I've done it several times and always seem to struggle. They've got it done, they're moved on to something else by now, and I'm still pushing it down. I don't know how they do it. Now be real careful when you're pushing it down using a screwdriver here, that you don't slip off the ring and slide into the bearing, because you can do some damage with that screwdriver. Take a second screwdriver and help out just a little bit. Yep, see, that's what happens when it doesn't get in the groove. Hate to have that happen at high speed. Okay, now it looks good. Your belt's going to be centered on the drive sleeve. That way there's two grooves on either side of the belt. Then we're going to put in the new idler shaft. Reposition the towel here. Alright, the new idler shaft goes in right here. Now, it's got two rows of grooves on it for the two belts. We've got this belt from the drive sleeve assembly, and then this belt goes to the motor. You've got your new eccentric. That one that had the set screw in it, throw it away. Slide your poly V pulley It's got to be properly engaged in the grooves. Slide your new idler shaft in. Just hold up on it with your, I'm using my right hand and pressing in with my left. You want to get that front bearing lined up with a hole on the eccentric. As soon as everything gets lined up, it slips right together. There we go. A little bit of a struggle. You're pulling up with one hand and pushing with the other hand, both at the same time. Now, I want to flip it over. Now, during this process, the belt is no longer where it needs to be. But you can push it with your thumb, move it over one step. That way it's centered. Now I have this large eccentric locking bolt right through the holes. Most of them have got square nuts like this. Some of the later models have hex nuts. Some of them you'll use 1/4" Allen wrench. This one I use 5/32. Now I also want to install this little retaining screw that holds the eccentric bushing in the headstock. Now on older Gilmer drive machines, you will have, instead of having this screw, you're going to have a clip. And it's a U-shaped clip, a very flat U. And it goes in this spot. You'll see, you saw it how it came out. You have to put the bolt through it, and it holds the eccentric in place. So that's the little difference on the A headstocks, the Gilmer drives of the early 60s. Okay, so that's all. Poly V belt, idler shaft, upper spindle is all together. Next thing is this wonderful PowerPro keypad. Has your on and off switch, preset buttons, up and down for speeds, forward and reverse, chart, lock, confirm. All of them right here ready to go. You've all seen the advertising. You know how it works. Now this is mounted with screws into these two studs right here. Now we use the shorter screws. You get 6 screws in the package. 4 of them are 3/4 inch long, 2 of them are 1/2 inch long. You must use the 2 1/2 inch screws here. Also, see there's 3 mounting screw holes here in the headstock. Ignore this one. It's not necessary anymore. If you put a screw in there, you're going to ruin the electronics in here. So it'll come down and hit right into there. Ruin everything. So don't do that. Make sure it's right side up. These studs line up with these 2 holes, and this plastic plug, the top of it will go right into the top of the casting, just like it was made for. Now, give them a little finger start just to get things lined up. And again, you folks with the old A-style headstocks, you're going to need to use a stubby screwdriver to get in here and tighten these down. Now, it's not too bad here, but I still prefer a long screwdriver. You can get through the access hole back here with a long screwdriver and tighten these screws. Now, just finger tight. Doesn't have to be any more than that. Because of the plastic, they won't vibrate loose or anything. If you get a big 2-fisted hand tightening on here, you're going to strip the plastic out and ruin the part. So don't do that. Okay, this is ready to go. The next thing is installing the big power supply that goes in here. Now the power supply is the heart and brains and lungs of this operation. The control panel does what the power supply tells it to. Now we're going to put some Tinnerman clips on these tabs that are sticking out here, and that's what accepts the screws through the headstock casting. Now you'll notice that these things, they'll fall off. So we're going to fix that real quick. Take the inside section of these locking jaw pliers, or slip jaw pliers, and just squeeze it together just a little bit. That way the Tinnerman clip has some grab to it. Now I like to put these on, this is the top, this goes up inside the headstock. I like to put them on from top to bottom. Now I've just put that one on backwards. The round hole has to be on the outside, and the metal clip that accepts the threads is on the inside. Squeeze these down a little bit. These are made for our castings, and they're just a little bit too thick for the sheet metal. It's okay. We fix them on the line just like this. We'll fix them here. Now, you can see this part sticking out right here. Point with the screwdriver. That's what accepts the screw, goes through the hole and grabs the screw like that. So that's got to be on the inside of the tab on the control panel. So the hole on, round hole on the outside, just slip it right over the tab. Now these like to go on just like that. Again, with the barb side in and over the hole. That way it'll all mount. Now these wires come up. Turn this around so you get a good look at it. First thing we need to do, these two wires plug to the switch. Remember I said white on one side and black on the other. The same thing happens with these. White goes next to the white, and black goes over here next to the black. This cable then plugs in right here to the back of the control panel. Now, getting this done so that you can see it all happen, it's a little difficult. Put the white wire on first, just because I can, and then the black wire. Okay, on the same size as the black wire, and then this plugs into the control panel. And I know that's down there in the dark and you can't see anything I'm doing, but I can. Now, that's plugged in. It only can plug in one way because there are tabs on the plug that only allow it to go one way. Now, set this down inside. I'm trying to help the wires down inside so that they don't bind on this between the control panel and the power supply. Okay, now as you see, there's not a whole lot of room in here, but there's just enough room. Put a screw in here. Stabilize the control panel a little bit. This is the first hole you drilled. Just finger tight for now. And matching screw on this side. Okay, just enough to hold things in place. Alright, I've zoomed in so we can see how to install this cord retaining clip. First we start with a screw in the back side of the power supply. Just finger tight, just hold it in place. Now this cord retaining clip simply snaps over the power cord and the ground wire and slides up against the wire tie. Now align the hole in the retaining clip with the hole in your casting. Put the screw through both. Start it finger tight and then grab your screwdriver. Tighten that up. Tighten the second side. What this does, it protects the wires inside the headstock so that you can pull the motor pan off and things will work around, but we'll never pull the wires loose from your switch. That way you won't have to go through all this to plug the wires back in if you pull them loose. So that's the reason for this important little wire clip right here. Now, the last thing to do is to install the wedge locks. As you can see, no room to work here with the wedge locks in place. That's why we had to take them out. So now's the time to put them back in. We've got a new part that goes on the wedge lock rod that we'll put on later. That's to protect the wires. We don't want any wires rubbing on the wedge lock threads on the wedge lock rod. Now make sure that the end with the hole goes towards the front. Put these in backwards before. And turn the flats down. Start rotating them. Now when you get over here into the casting, you can turn them and it won't hit the power supply. We'll control that wire in a little bit. Now because of the dirt on the wedge lock, you can see right where this end goes. Now this one will thread in. Shove it so the flats are even. And start turning it. I turn it till it's flush with the end of the wedge lock is flush with the end of the rod. This takes a little work to get done. It's close quarters. But you only have to do it once here. Now, get this tightened up. Just even with the end. Now this has to go out a little bit farther. And everything gets adjusted in the right direction. There's about an eighth of an inch, 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch movement back and forth here. That's about right. Now your weight tubes will go through there. Put the knob on. And use the locking pliers to hold this. You should be able to look down through the hole on the back side of the knob opposite the pin and see light through it when everything lines up. There it goes. The other way to check is with your punch. Your punch will drop down in the hole all the way through. And you know everything's lined up. At that point you can take the locking pliers off and turn it over. Now, give this a little bit of room here. So we've got to drive that roll pin down without damaging anything else. Including my thumb. This last little bit is the trickiest part. Okay. Flush on one side just like it was in the beginning. Now when that's all the way out, the wedge is touching the headstock lock. There's no play. The wedges are all the way out in full unlock position, just like it's supposed to be. Okay, now the last thing to go on is this little protective strip that goes on the wedge lock rod. It's just a coil of plastic. Just get started around one end. And work it around. Between the, you can kind of turn it with your hands and work it on the wedge lock rod. See, it's just growing and growing and growing. There. Now that protects the wires from getting chewed up by the threads in the wedge lock rod. Now the next thing is, put the headstock on the weight tubes. Move the motor pan under the machine, lift this back up where it was, ready to accept the headstock. Wedge locks are all positioned, wires are out of the way. Look in and see that everything's going just fine. Now let's lock it there for a minute. What we're going to do, because this new motor is so heavy, we're going to turn the table around. It's going to become a stage on the back side of the headstock to support the motor during assembly. So that's what I'm doing right now. Won't need that. Make sure that's locked. Now, raise it up vertical drill press. Make sure this is locked down. I think I'm going to turn it around so you can see it better. Let's lock this down. Now, the table will come out. It will tilt like it's going to be a drill press. I'm going to take it all the way out. I'm going to put it on the back side of the machine. This works on the 510, 520 just as well as it works on Model 500 here. Now on the 510 and 520, you have to remove the hand wheel right here to get the table nice and close. On this Model 500, it's nice and close to begin with. Now one of the boards I had you make to begin with was this 1.5 inch or so thick stage, we call it. That's going to support the motor and help us line everything up with the motor mounts. Now, here's the power. First thing I'm going to do is line everything up. How things are going to line up. First we need to lower the headstock. Everything starts to fit inside the casting. Just like that. Headstock looks a little tiny bit low. There it goes. Now we're only going to put in one screw on the side, and that's here, this screw on both sides. That's going to let us pivot up and install the belt. But first, we need to make some connections inside. Now that we know everything's lined up, first thing I need to do is to attach the ground wire onto this screw here. All right, now we have two sets of plugs here. A small 5-wire set. It gets plugged together. There's only one way to plug it because of the slot. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. So this slot right there engages that tab, snaps together. Now the large square plugs have, some of the holes have flats on the sides, and they have to line up with the corresponding pins on the other side. And that'll snap together. Okay. Need to bundle up these wires so that they stay out of harm's way. Fold one on top of the other and tie it up good and tight with one of these wire ties. The second wire tie, put on the back side of the small plug. Keep that close to the main wires. Okay, that looks good. Let's clip off the extras. Throw them in the trash. Now the last wire that gets tied up is the green ground. I put the last wire tie on the motor side of the small plug. There. Now, when you put it all together, the wires will fit right down in here nice and neat. They just kind of fold up with a little help. You'll see how nice and neat that is when you can look at it from the top. Everything lines up. Now, next step is to put the first screw in the top of the pulley side with a motor mount. These are fine thread screw, so you have to be careful about threading them in straight and not to cross thread them. When everything is lined up, there it goes, they go right in. Now no need to tighten it just yet, just so that it's close. We'll install the second one on this side. Now, the reason for just installing the first two is this lets us install the belt. The motor is suspended by the headstock. We don't need to stage anymore. And it's free to pivot. So, put the belt in, hook it around the poly V pulley. Make sure it fits all the grooves. Then raise the motor up. Belt in all the grooves on the motor pulley. And voila! The belt is installed. Now, you can see that the motor doesn't quite line up anymore. And that's due to the belt tension required. This this takes a lot of belt tension to drive that 1 3/4 horse or 2 horse if you're in 220. So it's going to take some pulling. Now, we try our best to set this up so that it will mount directly for you, but it looks like this one's going to take some belt adjustment at the same time. These 2 screws lock or unlock the motor mounts and allow them to move apart, come together. This set screw pushes against the outer mount here and allows the motor to go away from the idler shaft. This screw keeps the motor from pivoting. So we're going to loosen this screw and this screw on both sides. Yeah, what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Again, it's just one wrench, 5/32 Allen wrench. Now, the belt seems too long. I'm sorry, the belt seems too short. This gap is too great. So what I'm going to do is loosen this set screw. 1/2, 1/2, 2 revolutions. I'm going to do the same with this, but I'm tightening 2 revolutions. 1/2, 2 revolutions. That keeps that parallel and straight, keeps the pulley and everything in alignment. Do the same thing over here. Now, you can see this is a lot closer to aligning. There it goes, just snapped into place. So we can put the motor mount screws on here, and then we'll tighten everything back up. Again, make sure that your screws are going in straight, not cross-threaded. And you can tighten them up now. Okay. I'll do the same thing on this side. And the motor is secure to the headstock casting. Now, we're all used to, on the old Mark V, having some flex on these poly V-belts. The more horsepower that this generates, the more tension we need on the poly V-belt. So I'm going to, I turned the set screw in 2 revolutions. I'm going to back it out 1 to add more tension. Well, maybe I'm only going to move it 1/2, because that felt pretty tight. Okay, that is, and it's tight, it's hard. You really need the high belt tension at low speed. That's where it has to transfer most of the torque. So we'll tighten these up right here. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is ready to run. Everything's hooked up, belts are on, shafts turn, switch is hooked up. The only thing that's not completely done is the motor pan. What we have to do now is balance the tension between the two poly B belts using the eccentric. Alright, to balance the belt tension using the eccentric, we have to plug this in, turn it on for the first time. Main power on. Hear the happy tune play. You'll see warnings going across the screen. Now it's ready to go. It says 500 RPM. Now we're going to be working around the idler shaft. You have to be very precise with the position of your screwdriver and of your Allen wrench, because everything's going to be moving. Don't want to drop anything into moving belts and pulleys. We're going to turn it on for the first time, so I'm going to start at the beginning, start slow and work my way up. To start with, it says 500 RPM. So let's see how it sounds. Okay. Let's try 900 RPM. It says ready to run. There's 900. Now 1350. Ready to run. Okay, I hear a little bearing noise. Hear that rattle? We'll fix that in a minute. We're going to go 2000 RPM. Now remember, after 1500, you have to hit the confirm button to get it to start. So 2000, on, and confirm. Still hear the rattle. Sounds pretty smooth though. Now we're going to adjust the belt tension at 3450. That's about halfway in the middle of the speed range, a little bit less, but a good place to work. So 3450, ready to run, on, confirm. Now hear that bearing rattle? That's because the tension between the two belts are not equal. So loosen this, the rattle goes away. There, now it's quiet. That's all there is to it. You use your ears, you listen for the noise to go away. May take an adjustment here or there just to get it just right, but it'll be nice and smooth and quiet. Just for the fun of it, let's see what 9500's like. Now, this is going to be very fast. We're safe. We're up here at the top of the headstock. Tools are away. They're in my hand. Here we go. Confirm. Ever hear anything like that out of your Mark V? I bet not. Well, turn off the power, unplug it. We're almost done. Time to put the tenement clips on. They'll go here and here, and then the last one for the belt cover. Remember, the working part of the Tenderman clip goes on the inside. That way the screw will go through the hole and grab the clip. Now, the belt cover motor panel goes on first. I'm going to start from the back side. I like to put the top screw in first. Not all the way though, because if you tighten it all the way, then it causes this side to bow out. It does it a little bit anyhow. Now right here I've got the Tenderman clip. It's not quite lined up with a hole. I can use my Allen wrench to straighten that out. A little wiggle with the screwdriver, starts right in there. Again, not all the way tight because this is wanting to stick out. Give that a push. Tighten right up now. Pull this home up good and tight. Both front and back. Now, still have to put the strain relief on the wire right here. The magic tools for this is the locking pliers. What has to be done, this strain relief gets wrapped around the wire and then it squeezes the wire together, makes it kind of zigzag and locks it in place. That way if somebody grabs a hold of the wire, pulls the machine by the wire, it doesn't pull all the connections loose inside. So get that up as close as we can. I'm going to set the vice grips for the strain relief when it's closed. Just drops right out when it hits the right size. Put it on so that the small end goes in, lines up with a hole. I try to feed this little connecting tab in the hole and then give it a squeeze. Now, should be able to just walk it right in. Famous last words. Might be a little loose yet. Now this is a lot of work, but as soon as it goes in there, it's in there to stay. Just like it knew where it was going. Okay. Now we'll bring the belt cover in from the top. And it's held in place with 2 screws through 2 Tenderman clips. Give it a little push. There we go. Line this one up. You can put your hubs on now if you like to. Next I'll add the weigh tube tie bar. Tighten that down. These need to get good and tight. Always use the long end of the Allen wrench for leverage. And that's to dig into the weigh tubes. And now to the back of the machine, the power supply is right inside this hole. The logo plate has to cover that. These pins are just a little bit too long. They hit that power supply. Give them a couple of strokes. Shorten them up just a little bit. Doesn't take much. And you'll be able to pop this right in. Just like that. Now, we're almost done. Let's pull out the table. Set it aside. Let's lay down the machine. Last thing we've got to do, and it is the last thing, I'm going to clean off the headstock with some rubbing alcohol. We're going to apply new labels. Get the dirt off all the way down here. Now, this gold headstock is a little different than most of them. It has a label, or it has a serial number right here. This is a riveted on, we can't take it off. Right up here, normally, we put this speed chart. So, on your gray headstocks, clean that area too. This speed label will go on the top here of the belt cover, and then the warning label will go below it. So just peel off the paper. And it's split right in the middle. Make it easy. These are vinyl, so they are flexible. Right about where the words preset speeds, line that up with the top of the headstock right there. Got a little aggressive with it, didn't I? Now I like to just peel off the top half of this long label, line everything up. That way it looks nice. And peel off the bottom. Push it down. Alright, now get rid of this plastic protective cover. Look at that beauty. Now you've got your new PowerPro headstock all ready to go. Remember safe operating procedures, and